Hello and welcome to If Supr Says It, episode 5. I'm joined by the reigning world champion from TSM Geometrics
Ah,
and the greatest player in the history of the game. The meme, the only proclaimed meme player to ever live, Drip Bulin.
Thank you. It's truly an honor to be here.
Yeah, it's an honor for me to just be in the presence of you fine gentlemen. So today for episode 5, obviously it's been a while since during the season it is a little difficult to get these things together, not only with myself or some other players. We are going to make some predictions and talk about the current Charlotte major. Obviously, what we've learned up to this point is I think the Charlotte major is somewhat scuffed, as 3 of the 4 Brazilian teams are unable to actually play at the event. So Liquid will be playing, but Furia, W7M, and Team 1 will have to play on Mexico. So all of their games are essentially going to be played online, which is obviously completely different than playing on LAN. And it's just, potentially rather playing in front of fans or a crowd or in like an environment where people are yelling at you, you're just like playing in your underwear from like a hotel or whatever. Do you guys think that, do you guys think that that's going to give the LATAM teams that are not there an advantage or a disadvantage? Because in a way they feel like they're missing out. They have to play online. How do you think that like works for them like mentally? Because personally, I think it would probably help us, but I would also be pissed that like I didn't get to go to the event.
Want to go first, Trip, or should I?
Yeah, I can start. So I think those teams got, in the big picture, they got lucky. Like, you probably would rather play online from the comfort of wherever. Especially if they get out of groups, like you're going to have a team playing from a nice silent hotel room while you have another team playing in I assume to be a packed convention center. So I think they're going to have that advantage in that regard. Also, it's been said that the LATAM teams are a little crazier. Online ping is obviously different than the LAN zero ping. So, I think that's going to help a team like Furia, a team like Team One. But yeah, I think those teams have the advantage in the big picture. But like as personally, I would be pissed as well if I like made it to an event, got top 8, and instead of playing in front of a crowd, I'm playing from the hotel room in literally another country. Like I would be so salty.
No, for sure, I agree. I think if any, like you guys said, it's mostly like they're kind of missing on the experience, so that's why they would be upset. But I do believe, like obviously, there's gonna be like a big advantage. For example, like W7, like they've been playing from the comfort of their home. Like when you're in a hotel, you don't gotta worry about the casters or anything. You can see, you can hear everything. You just in there having a good old time, while everyone else is like at the venue. Fucking people are screaming, the casters are going crazy, and you're just sitting at home having a good time. And then, like he said, the ping is like a big difference. So we'll see how that works out.
Yeah, I think like obviously NA are the only teams that actually play on LAN currently, but I do think for some of these teams, like when they do play an NA team, like NA scrim online, but nobody in NA has played matches online in like a long time. So I feel like that'll just be like weird. Like off the top of my head, I can't think of any matchups, but like Dark Zero playing W7M or something online instead of on LAN. I feel like it also takes like some of the intensity. Like some of these teams rely a lot on like energy or like intensity and stuff like that. Like scream at the other team. And if you're just sitting there playing a team online and there's nobody like to scream at, I feel like it just makes it like weird in a way. Like it just doesn't. In a way, it almost doesn't. Like obviously it is, but it just doesn't feel like a real match almost because there's nobody. You can't see who you're playing.
No, I feel that 100%.
Yeah, you're gonna have Troy comedian screaming at people that are 2,000 miles away in another country. Like I don't know. Yeah, the energy's not there because like he'll look you in the eyes on stage and scream at you, But what's he gonna do when he's playing W7M that's 2,000 miles away? Like just scream at Pamba and tell him to tuck? I mean, who knows?
Yeah, why are you peeking, Pamba? Why are you peeking? Yeah, I definitely think that's one interesting aspect of this major. The other, I mean, I will say right now, I know that Elevate have been having, I don't think they have visas at this exact time. I'm not 100% positive on that, but I've seen on Twitter them make multiple comments how they're still waiting on visas. So potentially there could be more teams playing in Mexico. We don't know. Obviously, we hope that Elevate and all the APAC teams are able to get in the United States without an issue, but there's a chance that it even could expand to more teams. I think the other... Sorry, go ahead if you... What were you going to say?
No, I had a question for the ping. Do you guys know like what servers it would be hosted on? Would it be Central, South Central?
Well, it wouldn't be South Central because they're playing East.
That's what I'm saying. So, but like...
But it couldn't be... If it's East, then like Central's going to be at a disadvantage. If it's Central... East is at a disadvantage. So I don't know how they do that. Yeah,
because they're playing for Mexico City, I'm pretty sure. So like, that whole
they probably
situation
have
is
to do
weird.
Central. I feel like they have to do Central.
Then yeah, I guess then they get the Brazilians could probably get like lower ping then.
They get to play fantasy. They get to play fantasy online.
Go ahead. Sorry about that.
No, you're good. I was just gonna say, I think the other interesting aspect of this major in particular is because a lot of the teams that have been more successful over the past year, I think I mentioned it before, of the top 6 placing teams at Invite, only 5 of the 6 actually did not qualify for this tournament. So there's a lot of new blood in a way, new teams, a lot of potentially inexperienced LAN players, inexperienced, international players. And I think that plays a big part into it as well. And if you're somebody who was only qualifying for events, over the past year or so, it could potentially also be the first time in front of fans for a lot of these people. Do you think that adds another aspect to this tournament where you don't necessarily know how some teams are going to react to playing in front of fans or playing international teams or playing even on LAN for the first time? Do you think that's something that obviously can affect some of the favorites or some of the underdogs?
I think it. Well, first off, you had to get to the quarterfinals anyway, so I think that's kind of like. But in turn, I think that is like kind of like a motivating factor, right? Like I wouldn't want to I was talking about this the other day. I think you were in my stream, but we were saying like, what's more heartbreaking, to not make the major or to come third in your group and just have to like watch the event, right? Like to come, it's kind of the same like, same end game. Like you get heartbroken, you don't get to play in front of the crowd, and it's like I think that's a motivating factor that some teams could use, especially because like I remember a Kino tweet the other day where he says this is going to be my first time playing in front of fans. Obviously, if he doesn't get out of groups, that's not true. But like, I mean, you have people that have played it. And I was thinking about it. So Kino and Yakov, this is going to be their 5th major they've played at, and this is the first time they've ever played in front of fans. So it's just it could cause a shakeup for players like that because they've literally have never played in front of anybody else besides the people that worked at the HyperX arena, right? So I think it could definitely be a shakeup for some of them, but it could be a motivating factor. At least that's how I would see it.
I actually don't. I mean, I think the whole like playing in front of crowds makes people nervous thing is kind of like overrated. I feel like once maybe like like in the first round you're kind of like iced out, or just maybe just like you're not really into it. But like by the second round or by your first kill, you kind of get like into the swing of things. So I think no matter what, like people are gonna show up. I think it's mostly about like I do think like if you haven't played LAN before and you show up, you're like, wow, this is a completely different game, right? You've been playing online, you show up, and all of a sudden your shots are hitting, and it feels different. So I think that's something that could play a factor, but I don't think the audience is much of a factor. I think if anything, people are just excited to.
Yeah, I think I'd agree with that. Like, for the first, like you said, for the first round or two, you might be noticing the crowd, seeing them. Once you're like in the game, you're not really like. At least most people, I think, aren't just like you're not thinking about the crowd anymore. You're not like looking at the crowd. You're just focused on trying to like win or do the best you can in the game. But I do think the crowd aspect maybe is a little overrated, although there are certain teams where the crowd can get really behind, and that's like a big boost of energy. If you're like Liquid, like if you're a team with a big fan base, I remember at one of the USNs, we played like SSG, and the entire crowd was just like screaming like Sonics relegated, and like Like it doesn't necessarily bother you, but the fans are also much behind them that you can hear them. And then, the team they're rooting for, obviously that's, it's kind of like playing home field advantage in, a real sport. Like it does feed into you playing better a little bit or hype you up. So I think it's not that big of a deal, but it could be, a help potentially for, a G2, a Liquid, some of the teams with larger fan bases. I think the biggest potential factor is just the teams that have not played some of these international teams. Because, speaking for the Sonics last year, obviously it took us, I would say, 2 tournaments, 1.5 tournaments to really understand how to deal with some of the teams we were playing. And yeah, I mean, we kind of got unlucky because at our first tournament, we had to play Cyclops, we had to play BDS. Those are like, and we had to play like NIP. It's just like all over the board in terms of play styles. But if you're going from NA, for instance, playing against like Dark Zero and SSG, these like, pretty default like styles of play, all of a sudden you're playing like Cyclops Gaming, like you don't know what the fuck is going on. It takes you a little bit to adjust, and by the time you adjust, honestly, it might be too late in your first tournament. So I think that's potentially a bigger issue for some of the teams than, the crowd or even being on LAN for most of them.
No, I do agree to that point. I think people even people in chat and everything be like, "Oh, I mean, it's an APAC team, it's a Brazilian team. It should be a free win." And I think people realize like it's a whole different game when it comes to play styles from different regions. Like you show up thinking you're gonna have like default play style and everything, and all of a sudden like CAG's rushing you, Brazil's like running in, no drones, and you're saying they're like, "Am I in a simulation? Like this should get me real." Like I've never seen this before, and it's just like I guess that could like play a big factor in people getting used to it.
It's also like at this tournament, I think it may be a little easier just in terms of because a lot of the typical like top teams didn't necessarily qualify. But when you go to these tournaments too, the other thing you'll notice is the players are way better than what you're usually playing against because in your leagues there are usually some really good teams, some really good players, but there are also some teams that you usually rely on being able to beat. You call them stat padding games in a way, right? Like they're teams that just aren't up that talent level. So you can take advantage of like swinging them, doing whatever. When you're at these tournaments, none of the teams, whether they're the worst team there, they're still a team that has like extremely skilled players, right? Like even for APAC, the players are generally extremely skilled. Maybe the play style or the meta they're using is like a little off sometimes because they don't get as much tier 1 experience, I think. But the players are still much better than like, your typical, no offense, like EU, but like you're not playing like Secret and stuff anymore. You're playing, even if you're playing, like, I don't know who would be considered one of the worst teams there, like Chiefs or something. Like Chiefs are a team that has played at multiple LANs. They're still getting to these tournaments. You still have to worry about them. There's no freebies. But I do think. Yeah, go ahead, sir.
No. I was gonna. To your point, can the Chiefs come? Haven't they been able not to come because aren't they Australian?
I believe they're coming. They scheduled a scrum with us.
So they probably are coming.
Yeah. So I think they're fine.
Because I remember,
as far as I know, yeah, I was gonna say, as far as I know, I think the only APAC team right now that is up in the air a little bit, I think, is Elevate. But I have no idea.
So I remember them tweeting out like, I know they couldn't make like previous like majors or invites because of the whole like Australian shutdown. So I didn't even know if they were coming or not. Sorry about that.
Yeah, Dizzle actually said in the chat that the Australia is like pretty much open now.
That's cool.
I think I think once Joe Biden became the president of the United States and solved COVID for the world, that everything's kind of gotten back to normal. So God bless Joe Biden. But anyways, so I think now we can start talking about the groups, and I think we'll just go in order and start with Group A. I think we'll make some group predictions, and then maybe, whatever hot takes you want to say, whatever. So Group A is Direwolves, is Elevate, is OXG, and is Team One. In my opinion, this is probably the easiest group to predict, I think. For me, I look at Team 1, and I think they overachieved in their own region a little bit. When they made the Copa Elite 6 playoffs, they beat the one of the Mexican teams and I think one of the Argentinian teams. I'm not sure, actually. They beat them pretty handily. But when they played Liquid, they got 7-2, 7-4'd. Then they played Furia, they got 7-3, 7-1'd. So when I'm looking at Team 1, I think they're the weakest LATAM team there right now. They really struggled in the best of threes in the BR6 playoffs. I just don't see them doing very well. And then we have Direwolves, who I believe this is going to be their first international competition. They're new to these tournaments. I know they went undefeated in their own region, but then I think they also kind of struggled in the playoffs. They went 2-1 with Talon, then they lost to Cyclops 2-1, and then they got 2-0'd pretty handily by Elevate 7-3, 7-2. I know, Yardy, you've actually scrimmed them a little bit since you're here. What was your opinion? And don't give anything away really, but just generally on your, I guess how you would say skill level, or comparing them to like NA.
So yeah, they were like I said, they were very, very lackluster. Like honestly, they were, for lack of a better term, they were just terrible. Nothing against them. I mean, like I said, they made the event. They did go 7-0-0-0 in their regular season, and those are BO1s. So that's that's good to see that they can play BO1s. Again, I also don't take scrims for too much because maybe they're trying stuff, maybe they're playing for this and that, so it's whatever. Just I could see right there, I didn't think they had what it take to get out of groups. But again, a BO1, anything can happen. I think if I'm Dire Wolves, my idea for this tournament is to get crazy. I think that's kind of their only real chance. I don't think they can play like you can't really out fundamental the other teams in their group because I just don't think they have the talent to do so. I think Elevate's just way better. OXG I think is just way better, and Team 1 I mean is better. So Dire Wolves I would definitely have 4th place in this group. I think that's probably why it's easiest to predict because they're a surefire like 3-4 seed. In my opinion, probably the safest 3-4 seed in the tournament. So it pretty much this group you have a 33% chance of getting out is how I see it.
Yeah, and so if that leaves Direwolves as being kind of lackluster, obviously, like you said, we'll have to see them in games and best of ones. And if what I said about Team 1 is true, where they're kind of, in my opinion, probably the worst qualifying LATAM team, they really struggled against the elite teams in the BR6 playoffs and best of threes. Then that just leaves Elevate and OXG. Elevate, obviously, at Invitational, had a really nice run. They could have even gone farther, I think. And then they did make roster changes, but that didn't seem to really matter for them. They ended up winning the APAC playoffs, beating CAG in the finals. And at Invitational, if you remember, they really, besides the Sonics, actually, Elevate really gave NA teams trouble. I think they 2-0'd you guys, Geo, and they 2-0'd Dark Zero as well.
It's a blur. I don't remember.
Mm-hmm. So they, obviously they have a little bit of a different roster, but they are coming into this tournament with some real success against the NA teams at Invitational. And if you're saying this group is potentially between Elevate and OXG, you might want to. I honestly think I would probably lean Elevate, knowing that Elevate have had so much success against everyone NA besides the Sonics. And when you look at OXG, I think they will make it out of groups, but I've seen a lot of people predicting OXG to go like really far, like top 4, make the finals. I just don't see that happening, honestly. I think OXG are a good team. I think they progressively got worse over the course of the season. I think they have a very, very, very high reliance on Vertical to, do what he did in NALs, basically get 15 kills a game. And if he doesn't do that, I don't know if I can see like Newers picking up the slack, unfortunately.
Yeah.
What do you guys think about that?
I 100% agree. In fact, I have OXG getting third in this group. I think Team 1 has a lot of impressive BO1 wins. If you look at their season, they had a really impressive. They 7-5'd Furia, they beat Liquid 8-6, and they beat MIBR 7-4. They dominated NIP. So they have like what it takes to really dominate BO1s, which is again all group stages. Like that's how I'm gonna weigh my vote here. OXG obviously has a very strong reliance on Vert. Vert was. I don't like, you win as a team, you lose as a team. I don't. It's hard to give a single individual all the credit, but like if you watch the Sonics versus Vert that game, he had a huge 1v4. He dropped 18 and 8, got Player of the Day. Against us, he had a crazy 1v4 that shifted all the momentum that their way. Just plays like that I don't know you can really get away with in like international play. I feel like a lot of teams will try to like isolate him no matter what that is. And yeah, I agree. I don't think Newers has proven he can pick up the slack. Does he have the talent to? Maybe. But me and you on my stream the other day looked at the newer stats, and it's very possible he has young Alex syndrome. It's very possible he has young Alex syndrome. He was like something like -15 against the upper echelon of the NAL teams. So I have OXG, my hot take, getting third in this group. Again, maybe they'll work more. Maybe they'll come together more as a team and not be so reliant on Vert, which obviously isn't their fault. He's just a good player. But like I said, I think Team 1's a more complete team currently. Like I think they just have what it takes to win the BO1s, and I think Elevate is just shuts down NA teams very well.
What are you thinking here, Gio? Obviously, you've played Elevate, a different version of the roster, and you've played OXG.
First of all, does Elevate actually is it confirmed they're going yet, or we still don't know?
I believe they're going. We'll make predictions under the assumption they are going to be there.
Okay. Well, if they're going to there, I probably have to agree with Drip. I think Elevate and Team 1 probably get first and second. Probably Team 1 probably first, Elevate second. I can see OXG hopping in there, but I mean, it's like you guys said, it's all about just consistency overall for the team. And I just feel like Elevate and Team 1 just have like really leg sweep potential, if that makes sense. Like I played Elevate, they smoked us, so I got to give it to them. So, but I mean, OXG's
Elevate have a very weird style. If you have never played them, like the way they play is very strange. It's like the best ranked team you'd ever see, like a god stack, and like if you're playing ranked, like they play extremely strange.
100%, and then I guess Direwolves is probably the last. So if I had to like rank it, probably Direwolves, OXG, then Team 1, Elevate. I would have to say.
Yeah, for me, so I do agree with OXG. I think you know what you're going to get out of Lax. You know what you're going to get out of Fox. They're pretty consistent regardless of who you're playing. For Vert, he's obviously a great player, very consistent himself, but you have to expect a drop-off that Vert is not going to be getting 15 kills a game against some of the best teams in the world, right? Like, that would just be so... Like, if he does that, he's probably the best player in the world right now. Like, that would just be... Nobody does that outside of, like, Palu, essentially, right?
Yeah.
So if you're assuming that Vert has somewhat of a drop off in performance, even going from like 15 kills to 10 kills a map or something, right? Then you're asking Newers to do more. And interesting fact about Newers, he only went positive in 3 games the entire season. One of those games was the last game of the season against Xset, where the game literally did not matter at all. He went +6 in that game.
That was playing in suits. They were playing in
they were playing in suits. In all of the other games, against Dark Zero, Newers was 3-10. Against Sonics, Newers was 3-11. Against SSG, Newers was 7-11. Against Astralis, he was 6-6. Against TSM, that was the first game of the season. He went 13-6. Against Parabellum, he was 11-11. Against Beastcoast, he was 9-7. Against Mirage, he was 6-6. So of every game he played, he only went positive in 3 games. One of those games didn't matter. One was the first game of the season against TSM, who obviously had a poor stage just like us. And the other game was against Beast Coast.
No, yeah. I would have to I guess my take on OXG, I guess is kind of like not a crazy take, but it's like I've always seen them kind of like as a honeymoon team. Like if you look about it, like they've had a lot of roster changes, and every time they make a roster change, they kind of like it's like stocks. They just keep going up, and then they have like this little loop they like to go on. It was like they hit like their top and they started like declining in performance, and it's kind of like scary for them, I would say, because I guess they started declining performance at the end of the season. I mean, they did beat Exit at the end, but I mean, I don't know how much you can really. Those guys are playing in suits, and who knows what they were doing. I mean, at this point,
Yeah.
so it just kind of makes you like not worried, but like, I mean, is it starting to hit them? Is the honeymoon kind of like over? Because like, I mean, throughout their whole rosters, I would say like the most consistent roster they probably had was probably like the who was on the team, Retro Skies. Maybe that's what
Yeah, I
had,
think that was them.
or was it Markin? It was one of
It was the
those.
Shark.
Yeah, I think it might have been one of the. Yeah, that was when they were like consistently pacing top four, maybe making lands. Apart from that, they started like once they started going up. I mean, if you think about it, when Nick was on the team, what they made the finals versus SSG in the USN. Even with Bio, they were putting up good numbers. I mean, Kino, obviously, Yaga, they did good. So it's just about.
I think with that core of Vert, of Fox, and of Lax, you pretty much know what you're gonna get, right? It's kind of always on the other two, just to see how they perform. Now, obviously, in this situation, as we already talked about, Vert was so crazy good this stage that it's hard to assume he's going to do the same thing internationally. So you expect a little bit of a fall off. And if you truly think that like Vert is essentially like a hard carry, then that's going to require people to step up. And as I just went over with Newers, I do not think he has the ability to do so right now. Maybe he will. That was his first stage ever in Pro League. But I think Newers is honestly extremely overrated right now. I think he overrates himself even. He's a player who played, according to the SQ ratings, he played 87% Finca with a .9 rating. So he's playing the best gun in the game, the best operator in the game, 87% of the times, going .9, only going positive in 3 games. To me, that's a poor performance from an entry player. Like, I know he has good entry stats. He was 4-0 in entry in the last game where players were using suits. So I think for OXG, personally, I think OXG still make it out of this group. I think I am not a Team 1 believer. I think OXG will outplace Team 1. But I think Elevate win the group. I think OXG gets second, Team 1 get third, Direwolves get last. If Vert carries over his NAL performance, OXG will win the group. But it's, to me, less so on Newers playing better because I think he is what he is. I think it's just if Vert can carry over just being like LeBron, basically, and just dominating all the teams he plays.
I can definitely see that. I definitely don't like. I'm not counting OXG out. If anything, I think they obviously could still win the group, but I mean, who knows?
Okay, so for you two, are you guys both picking Team 1 over OXG?
I am.
So you're going Elevate, Team 1, OXG?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. So a little bit of a difference opinion there. And now we'll go to Group B, which is Cyclops, Furia, who will be playing online, which if any team has, that you kind of don't want to see online, I honestly think it's Fantasy and Furia. Liquid, who, in my opinion, are probably tournament favorites, and Exet, who, in a way, this is a 3-team Brazilian. This is the craziest group. All of these teams are pretty high-paced in terms of how they play. I think these games will be really fun to watch. Exet is up there with Astralis in terms of being the most aggressive for NA. In a way, this is a 3-team Brazilian group almost.
Because it's the most exciting group of anything. It's gonna be like just a lot of action.
What are you guys thinking about these 4 teams, and especially because potentially Furia is playing all of their matches online?
So I'll start. I also scrimmed another team from this group recently, and it was Xset. And the Xset I saw there in that scrim is an Xset that could win a major. Now, obviously, again, I don't weigh scrims heavily, but just being friends with them, talking to them, knowing them, I think everybody here knows some of the players very well. There's like like a swagger they have with them. They carry with them, like they're so confident. They have really good teamwork, and it's really something to see because they honestly were really bad their first week in the NAL. But like everybody knew they didn't have bad players. Like they've always had good players, but it's just the way they carry themselves and their confidence. Which again, this group is so hard to predict because they all kind of play the same. They all play crazy. They all play aggressive. But I think again, it's just so hard to predict. So I'll let other people speak before I say my final prediction because I would like to hear insight from everybody else before I really like because I have a thought in my mind of what I want to put this group at, but it's still like I'm still open to change.
What are you thinking, Gio?
This is predictions right now, right? I
Well,
think,
you can make predictions or just generally talk about your opinion on the teams.
like I said, I think this is probably like probably the second best group. I would say maybe first or second. You could say. I guess I'll do my predictions now. I think Exit and Liquid make it out. I honestly think it's probably up in the air. I think Cyclops is like a really good team, but I mean they had like 3 games that they couldn't close out at Invite that they should have won. I think it was SSG and I forgot who else. So I think they can definitely win, especially in best of ones. But I don't know. Furia, I mean, I think Furia, even with the ping, I don't think they still pull it out. But who knows there? And then Liquid and Exit, I do have to agree. I think Exit is going in really confident, and I mean Liquid's just Liquid. So for me, I think I would probably put Liquid first, Exit second, Cyclops third, Furia fourth.
Yeah, so when I look at this group, I think obviously everyone probably gravitates towards putting Liquid first, and I think that is how I have it as well. In my opinion, I probably would say Liquid is one of my tournament favorites. Going into the BR6 playoffs, they 2-0 Team 1, 7-2, 7-4. They beat W7M 2-1 maps, 8-6, but then they won 7-1, 7-3. And then they rematched W7M in the finals, and they won 7-5, 7-4. So they're coming into this tournament playing well. They won their league. They won the playoffs for their league. They're arguably, if not the most experienced team here, one of the most experienced teams here. They're not going to have any issues understanding how to play against these teams, especially because Furia are another Brazilian team, and Liquid typically handle other Brazilian teams, and Exet play like a Brazilian team. And I'm sure, as familiar as Bodega may be with Liquid's play style, they are also familiar with the way Bodega's teams play with MIBR. So I think Liquid are first. What's interesting with Liquid is the knock on them in the past, I feel like, is they're kind of, I would say, very slow for the team. Like, they're very slow or very predictable, or they have been, in my opinion, for especially coming from the region they do, when the region is known for being very aggressive and, just kind of all over the place. And I've seen Liquid this stage, as the season went on, start to implement some unpredictability to their game, some rushing, some kind of uncharacteristic plays you might typically not see from them. So if they're keeping, their fundamentals the way that they play, but adding, this ability to go fast, this ability to force gunfights on you, let's be honest, if Nesk and Palu are forcing gunfights on you, most of the time Nesk and Palu are going to win those gunfights. So that's something they should be doing in general. Playing slow honestly goes against the talent level of the team. So I think Liquid are looking really strong going into this. Furia, to me, I've never been a fan. We've scrimmed them a lot in the past, and we've always handled them. I think Furia, to me, played the extreme other side. Like, if Liquid are on this side of passiveness, Furia are on this side of just being balls to the wall. Fantasy, he must have the lowest survival rate of all time. I swear to God, that guy is 1 for 1 every single round. That guy, we were scrimming him at Envy on Chalet. This guy repelled in solar, didn't shoot the solar cam, and just was running through Fireplace, not shooting any of the cams, chasing us across the map. And we're just C4ing this guy over and over. I think they are, obviously, I do think playing online actually helps them. And I think they are better than Team 1. They did, in the BR6 playoffs, handle Team 1 pretty easily, 7-3, 7-1. but then they got handled by W7M 7274. So I feel like they're the probably third in terms of the LATAM teams there. And to me, it comes down to Cyclops, really. Because I know what we're getting from Xset. We've all played Xset, right? And we know the style they play. But they're essentially trying to play a Brazilian style against Brazilian teams. And then they're going to have to go into an event without ever playing CAG, dealing with CAG. And that is a hard thing to do if you've never played them. And, Yogg and Kino have a lot of international experience. Everybody on this team doesn't. Spirits did play at Invite 2 years ago, I think. And he had some decent success, but he didn't have to play these guys. Now, the knock on CAG is that they haven't made it out of groups at any tournament. They have a ton of experience. They've had the same team. They make it to all the tournaments. They make it to every major. They make it to Invite. They've never made it out of groups. But like you said, Gio, they seemingly always should. They just find a way to, choke the games. So to me, this group comes down to if Cyclops can close out games, they will make it out of the group. If Cyclops cannot close out games, I think Xset make it out of the group. I think Liquid is first. And yeah, if you were gonna say Liquid and Cyclops played at Invite, and Cyclops won a map and then could have 2-0'd Liquid, and then trolled, and Liquid came back and won. But that shows you, especially in a best of one, the threat that Cyclops are. They can beat you. They can beat anybody if they can close out the game. And it's easier to close out a best of one than it is a best of three. So I think it comes down to, can Cyclops finally close out games, get out of groups? And if they can't, I think Xset make it out probably as the second seed. What do you think, Yardy?
So I think Xset's actually the biggest wild card in this group. I can see them getting first. I can see them getting last. Like I said, we talk about Furia ping helping them, but we've all played against Kino in scrim shock, when he shotguns and lean spams, and it's the same. It's going to be the same shit he does, and he gets the online advantage too, and it's going to be just as annoying for Furia. Like I said, I see Xset finishing. I can see them finishing first. I can see them finishing last. And as a certified NA hater, I'm going to put Team Liquid at 1 and Furia at 2, and then Cyclops or Xset 3 and Cyclops 4. I like everybody on Xset, but like I said, I'm an NA hater. I'm Team Brazil for this group for sure.
Yeah, I think for me, I'm gonna go Liquid 1.
You want to say Cyclops too, huh?
I'd probably say Liquid 1, CAG 2, Xset 3, Furia 4. But I really think Xset or CAG, it's extremely close.
It is.
It literally, because remember, there's 9 maps now, and it's best of ones. It's just going to come down to maps for a lot of these teams.
Yeah.
We can make all these predictions, but if you could tell us all of the maps that these teams are going to play, our predictions might change, right? You don't know what's going to happen in terms of the map ban phase. You don't know how certain teams' map pools line up with each other. So it is hard to make predictions. I think I lean towards CAG finally getting out of groups here. They've been to so many tournaments and never made it out. They're good enough to make it out. I just feel like finally it clicks for them and they sneak out of this group. I do think Furia get last no matter what. If Furia don't get last, it's in my mind because Xset don't show up and perform that well, and Xset get last. I do not think CAG get last no matter what. I think Furia gets last, and if they don't, it's because Xset, this is a hard group to be in. That's just how I see it.
No, yeah, I had to. So to your point about the Liquid, I do think they've gotten better over time. Even us when we played them at Invite, it's like you said. For example, we were playing Chalet, and they just wouldn't give it a rest with solar takes for some reason. And it's kind of like you have Palu and Nesk on your team, and for some reason you're just putting them on windows and trying to peek Bo and Merc. It's not a winning fight. Isn't literally you sit down the window and hope to God they can kill Merc and Bo or just rappel in and die. So I feel like they definitely gotten better, especially with their player style, just adapting and switching it up and throwing just different stuff up there. So I definitely do agree. I think Team Liquid's probably one of the favorites to win.
Yeah, I think the two younger players they brought in obviously took a little bit of time to kind of get adjusted and figure out how they want to play with them. But I think those guys have given them more flexibility and what they want to do, because those guys are both like they're gunners. Those guys are they're good players. So
And that's because the IGL, right? I'm pretty sure.
yeah, I think so.
Yeah.
So I we'll make some, like, I guess, hot take predictions or deeper predictions after we decide groups, but I'm probably leaning towards Liquid being my tournament favorite at the moment, at least. So moving on to Group C, this is, I think most people would consider the best group, Group C or B. It's Dark Zero, G2, Heroic, and W7M. Obviously, W7M are going to have to play all of their matches online. What are your guys' initial thoughts on this group?
I think it's just like Group B. Like, you can see a reality where every team finishes first, last, second, and third. Like, it's a coin flip of a group. I don't know if W7M are frauds. Like, it's real. This will be a same for Heroic. I guess this is both teams' first international event. I think each team has a player that competed in international event. I know Heroic has Uno. G2's kind of like a safer bet team. But again, G2 has just like been very unimpressive, and they got bailed out. They shouldn't be at this tournament. They are at this tournament because Rogue cannot close out a game because they have rips. But this is anybody's group. I like to lean towards Dark Zero, as sloppy as they were at the beginning of the NAL stage. Like, they're kind of like a safer team, in my opinion here. So I definitely, again, as much as this pains me to say, I think they get out of the groups for sure. And I had to think really hard about this next spot for these three teams.
I'm actually a big fan of Heroic. I actually have Heroic winning the whole event. Spoiler. I think it's a great storyline. I think the last time Uno played was at North Carolina, so I think it comes all the way around. And he was in the finals versus Empire. So I think that's a great storyline. So I have Heroic as my personal favorite to win the whole event. Like Jordy said, I think it's a stacked group, so I think anything could happen. W7 is playing from home, so not home obviously, but like a nice hotel. So they're probably just comfy. I would have to say predictions right now. Can you hear that, by the way, or no? In the background?
It's okay.
Oh, okay. I think he's out. I would probably do Heroic first, and then let's do W7M second. Dark Zero third, G2 fourth.
Sorry, I was just distracted because Newers tweeted and said I was talking crazy. All good, he'll let me rock out.
Oh, you gonna rock out?
Which I thought is hilarious, because I literally just said his stats and his by game performance. How is that talking crazy? It's his stats. He went positive in 3 games. He plays Finca 93% of the time and has a 0.9 rating. One of the 3 games he went positive in was against Xset wearing suits. He plays the best operators in the game on one of the best teams in the league, and still goes negative on an entry roll. Like, bro, you have Vert on your team. You can't bait Vert for more kills? Like, I'm not talking crazy. To speak facts. Facts are facts. It doesn't matter. Then he says he's leading entries in stage 1. By the way, the last game he had 4 entry kills, 0 entry deaths against Xset. So he wasn't actually leading the league in entries until the last game where he killed a bunch of people wearing suits. Where he says he made a major in his first stage while I'm negative 3,000 in 9th place, all while I watch from home. We were fucking ass this stage, and this guy at one point against us was 0-11 on Finca. He literally had a guy get 15 kills a game to save him from being fucking embarrassed. If they would have lost that game, they could have missed the major. He had to have Superman save him out. I'm not talking crazy to say stats. He's fucking talking crazy to say before the stage that Grixer, the highest rated player at Invite, the NAL champion, consistently one of the highest rated players in the world over an entire year. By the way, this stage where the Sonics got shit on, still higher rated than Newers, still Grixer on Finca 1.5 rating, better than Newers in every single way. Newers still has the nerve, as somebody who has never played a game, to call one of the best players, CGG's fourth best player in the world, overrated. And then he sits on Twitter and all he can fucking talk about is that he had 9 entry kills, plus 9 on entry. Are you fucking kidding me? You've done nothing. You made one tournament because you have Laxing and Fox and Vert and Dream. You didn't make the major because of you. They made the major in spite of their Finca having a 0.9 rating and going positive in only 3 games. Check your fucking ego. You've done nothing. If you even last, I hope he gets shit on here. I'll be surprised if he even lasts the whole fucking year. Check your fucking ego. You've done nothing. You're a negative rated entry player on one of the best teams in the league. They had Yaga last year putting up way better stats than you. Kino putting up way better stats than you. You are not as good as them, but you act like you're fucking Pablo. You call Pablo LeBron. He is LeBron to you. You're fucking Smush Parker. Holy fuck.
I also
check your fucking ego.
I also was higher rated.
Yeah. Yeah.
Nah, I was.
Okay. Anyway, so Group C. I'm looking at it, and I honestly think this is a very hard group to predict. W7M were extremely dominant in the regular season of Brazil. And really, the only team that we saw handle them was Liquid, which, I mean, it's Liquid, right?
Yeah. Liquid.
So I think they actually have a big advantage here and that they get to play online because this is a team that hasn't played on LAN. They have a lot of inexperienced players and they're not going to have to go to a LAN environment and learn how to play on LAN, right? They're just going to be able to do whatever they want, essentially, from home. So I think that plays heavily into what they do. Now, the problem for them isn't necessarily their own play. And to be honest, now that I'm thinking about it, because this is best of 1, I actually think W7M have a really good chance to make it out of groups. I think they were exposed a little bit in the BR6 playoffs when they're best of 3s. Because, in my opinion, W7M do have a weak map pool right now. I think they were exposed a bit by Liquid for that map pool in the BR6 playoffs. But in best of 1s, you're going to have to play them on a pretty good map for them. And they are, if you have watched any W7M games, they are very one-offy. Like, the stuff they do is very unpredictable. It's very one-off. It's very, honestly, hard to handle. And that's a style that really works in best of 1s. It's almost like CAG in a way, right? Like, you don't know what you're dealing with until you're in the game, and you don't have like, what could happen, because this happened to us at Invite, right? Is like, you play a team that's like really crazy. In a best of 3, you're like, okay, maybe they shock you the first map. You're like, okay, well, we kind of know what to expect now. So you can go into the second map with like a little bit of a different game plan, a little bit of a different way to want to handle, like, deal with what they're doing. In a best of 1, it's too late at that point. You just have to, deal with it and move on. So I think that works to their advantage. Heroic, I mean, I agree with Gio. Like, this group is so hard to predict for me. I think Heroic are really good. They lost 1 game in the region. Outside of that, they were undefeated. They were a good team last year, and they made that 1 roster change for Uno that seemed to elevate them a little bit more. I think, I think Heroic make it. I don't know who I want to make out of this group looking at it. Heroic pretty much dominated their region, and if you look at like teams from EU in the past who have kind of dominated their region, they've all kind of had that success, right? Like BDS going to these tournaments, they haven't necessarily won them, but they come to these regions, these tournaments, and they place very high. They're never getting grouped. Like, these teams who go 8-0-0-1 just don't get grouped. Like, they're, regardless of whether you think EU is lackluster or not, it's not a team that to me is ever going to get grouped. So I think Heroic make it out, and that leaves one spot then for DZ, for W7M, and for G2. And you look at DZ, they may be by far, them and BDS probably, the most experienced team at this tournament. Like, they have Troy, they have Eclipse. These guys have been, I mean, they've been to every tournament. Nothing's going to shock them. They can handle all this. And in my opinion, coming from NA, I think DZ have the deepest map pool. So they're really, like, for best of ones, I think they're really tough because they can play. I think the only map they didn't play was like Skyscraper, and they can play all the 8 other maps. Now, obviously, to what extent, like how good, like they're strong on all the maps, but are they elite on any of them? I would probably say no, maybe like Bank. So it comes down to can DZ, because I know you've scrimmed G2 already, and we've scrimmed G2 as well. And I personally think that DZ are going to have trouble with G2. I think, I'm not giving anything away, but I just think the way G2 plays is a way that DZ traditionally don't deal with the best. I think DZ are much better dealing with the more predictable, more structured style. And if you're a little loose, it's hard for them to deal with. And I think playing a team like G2, where, say what you want about them, but where they all have, shooters. I don't know that Troy walking around the map by himself with Jackal and Flores or whatever, Doki and Citizen, those guys can take advantage of that, right? Like, if they get a 1 with Troy, he's going to lose that.
Yeah.
So I don't think it's funny because initially, before we knew the groups, I thought DZ had the chance to maybe do the best of the NA teams. I don't think they make it out of this group, honestly. I think I say Heroic, W7M, G2, DZ. But I honestly think any 3 of these teams can get that second spot. I think Heroic get first, though. I think they're under the radar a little bit, but I think they're a really strong team. So, I mean, like we said earlier, I think it all comes down to, honestly, the maps, especially with a team like DZ, where they have a really deep map pool. They can, they can kind of take advantage of that. But yeah, I think I say Heroic, W7, G2, and then DZ. What do you think, Yardi?
Yeah, after, thinking about it a little more, I see G2 as kind of like the EU OXG. If you look at the stats, Citizen was the best player in the region. He bailed them out of a lot of games. I think G2 is a deeper team than OXG, but that's kind of like my NA comparison to them. So I think of them in this group. It just depends how Citizen plays. It's like Vert. So, but I don't know. I don't think Prano's any good. I think he's like very, very below average in terms of like champion. Like, can he win a championship? I think Virtue's past his prime by a mile. I think they're very reliant on their top 3 players. So I think they're the safest bet for 4th. I agree with Heroic in first. I think, like I said, you don't go 8-1 in your group or in your region and not make it out of groups. Like, that's a very tall task to win 8 out of 9 games against the best teams in your region. Even though
and they weren't even like most of the games were like blowouts too.
Even if Heroic is playing like players like Secretly and stuff, like, you still got to give them credit. So I think they get it first. I think W7M's X factor, like, I think the wildness, the nobody really knows anything about them. They lost to Liquid in the finals of their region in the Copa R6 or whatever it's called, but they were already qualified at that point. So you can, in the grand scheme of things, that was a meaningless game. So I'm gonna put Heroic 1, W7M 2. I think DZ will get 3rd, but as an NA hater, I'm gonna put them 4th just because I'm spiteful like that, and G2 in 3rd.
And then who did you have, Gio? You had Heroic and who?
Heroic, W, Dark Zero, G2. But I do agree, Dark Zero maybe could upset. The whole group's just kind of. I feel like no matter what, Heroic wins it out, and then everything else is just a toss up. But yeah, W7, Dark Zero, G2.
So we're about to go into Group D, and I just wanted to point out that I think you guys hate NA because I at least picked OXG to make it out of groups in Group A. I think you guys have predicted every NA team so far to get grouped.
Good. I tweeted it too. I hope it happens.
Okay. So
I think NA's always been kind of like everyone hates each other, even though like when people get knocked out, they still go like, "Oh, I hope TSM or SSG take it home for us."
when you tweet like,
Yeah,
let me
like
ask you this: when you tell somebody to like take it home for NA, are you really like, I hope you get fucking shit on?
It's like Hyper, for example, when he tweeted out like after they got knocked out, they were like, "Oh, bring it home, TSM," and like when we were playing, he was like trying to jinx. He's like, "Oh, TSM won already, let's go," and it's just like everyone in A is kind of like a whole like everyone just hates each other. So I don't know why everyone tries to play the
I
good
don't hate
whole, like,
anyone.
it is what it is. That's
I'm
what
a
I
big
gotta say.
fan of all teams.
I love it, A.
Okay. So moving on to Group D. I actually think this group is somewhat easy to predict as well, honestly. We have Astralis, Chiefs, LFO, or former Vitality. I don't know how they still don't have an org. And BDS. What are your guys' thoughts on this group?
So another hot take here. I think Astralis gets first. I think so. Again, I don't judge much off scorings, but Astralis just has like they just call out and Forest brought something to the team that brought the other four to life, and they're really exciting to watch. You know, there was a stat where they were one of the only two teams in the entire world to have 5 players that were positive throughout the stage. I mean, that just shows like in today's meta, the firepower is on their side. They can play everything. They're very flexible. Like Forrest is a notorious like flexible player. Like yeah, he's their breach player on some maps, but he can hop on Twitch and go 18-2 on Villa. Like that's like so underrated in just today's time like of Siege. Like all of them I could see can have a big game of 15 plus. So for that reason, I think they're just the strongest in their group. I think they're just more complete in today's game than BDS. Like I don't know. I've always thought Rafal was like a weak link for BDS, and at this very moment, I think judging from the regional play, Astralis just looked better than BDS did. So I think Astralis won BDS 2. The last two teams, it's whatever. I think they're both like I think everybody has Astralis and BDS at 1 and 2. I think Chiefs are kind of Mickey Mouse, and I think LFO has they have some bright spots on their team, but I think like they also have some extremely weak players. It just like it's just gonna hold them back in the big picture. So, like I said, Charlotte's 1, BDS 2. Toss a coin for Chiefs and LFO for me because it doesn't matter. They're not making it out of the group.
What are you thinking, Gio?
This is kind of weird. I feel like you.
If you predict Astralis to not make it out, you actually hate NA. That's all I have to say.
Should I do it to end it? No, I mean, I actually originally had it. I think I had like BDS and then LFO and then Astralis Chiefs. But I mean, the drip did bring up good points. If anything, I could see maybe Astralis. BDS, I think no matter what gets first or second, and then Astralis LFO is a toss up. I feel like LFO is kind of weird, but it just depends. I think Astralis is really like they like to hit the site, so it's just kind of like hitting the site kind of works in your region in best of ones. But I mean maybe it'll work internationally. But I definitely don't think it's just a Mickey Mouse play style. I do think they have like talent and they've been working really hard on perfecting it. So let's do BDS, Astralis, LFO, Chiefs for me.
Yeah, I think I'm honestly leaning the same way. I think BDS won this group. I think Astralis gets second. I would not be surprised at all if Astralis got first. Astralis, coming into this tournament, in my opinion, are definitely the strongest NA team. I think if BDS and you know I am giving BDS some credit here that they've kind of corrected some of the issues that I think they had at the beginning of the EUL because they did play a lot better towards the end. If this is the BDS that we are used to seeing, I think they are extremely good. I think it's very hard to play against them. I think especially because Astralis have never played against them. They've never, everybody. Wait, actually, I think nobody on their team. No, Shuttle has, obviously. Outside of Shuttle, none of them have had a lot of international experience, and Shuttle hasn't played internationally for a while. So he's kind of going to be like me when I came back to these. It's a complete, it's just way different now. The teams are just so much better than they used to be. I think Astralis gets second. I think BDS get first, but I am giving BDS that credit of this is fucking BDS. Like, they're going to show up to majors and do well. If BDS are kind of off, not exactly on their game, I think Astralis win this group. I think Astralis, even though I'm predicting them to get second in this group, I think Astralis are very good. I think they're extremely good. I think they have a very good play style for this current meta. I think Callout has those guys work really hard, and I think they put in a lot of work and a lot of time to be good. So I respect their team a lot, and I think they are very good. I'm kind of just giving them second because I think BDS, when BDS is playing their game, is like a top team in the world. Like, legitimately, like, you know, this is a team that people are shocked when BDS don't win events, right? You have to be a different kind of good for your expectation going into every event is to win. There are only certain teams that have those kind of expectations, right? So I think Astralis gets second, but that's not me knocking Astralis. That's just how good I think BDS are when they're on their game. I think LFO, I just don't know what to expect from them. I was looking at their games. So in their own region, their losses, they lost to BDS 7-4. They lost to Rogue 8-7. They lost to Eminem 8-7. They lost to Heroic 7-4. Their only win against a team in the top 6 was an 8-6 overtime win against G2. So LFO, in a way, were kind of picking on the lower ranked teams in EU. And I think that's a good way to kind of go on fraud watch, is if all you do is beat the lower teams, but that gives you enough points and you sneak out one win, and this was even an overtime game.
Did you watch that game? I'm pretty sure that's a ridiculous game where like it was like a 2v5 or something.
G2,
and then P4, P4 dropped the back edge and 1v4'd them. Or
I VOD reviewed that game. G2 should have won that.
Yeah.
Like, it should not have been an overtime game. G2 should have won that game.
Yeah.
So honestly, if LFO don't win that game, I don't think they even make the major. But outside of that win, that's their only win against a top 6 EU team. That I can't give a team that has one like decent win making it out of a group. And you know, same thing that we said about Heroic. Astralis are coming into this being 8-1. 2 of their wins were in overtime. But teams that are dominant, like that dominant in their regions, they don't get grouped unless something's wrong, right? And I don't think anything's going on with Astralis. No matter how bad you think a region is, no matter how bad you think some of the teams in that region may be, it's hard to go 8-1 in best of ones. Like, you are a good team to do that. So this group somehow has 2 teams who went 8-1. Or no, sorry, no, they don't. But you know what I'm saying. Anyways, I think Astralis, BDS, LFO, and then Chiefs is how I ordered this group. Right? Yeah. Are we all kind of on the same page for that one?
Yeah.
We're gonna spare Astralis through an NA team makes it out of groups. You guys are okay with that? Are you sure?
As sick as it makes me feel, yeah, they can.
I'm twitching. I can't handle.
I can't. I'm not gonna watch a single game.
Okay, so then just reviewing before we kind of make some other predictions. For Group A, I had Elevate and OXG making it out. You both had Elevate and Team 1 making it out. For Group B, I had Liquid and Cyclops making it out, but I basically said I think that's like literally a coin toss between Cyclops and Exet. And then I think, did you both have Liquid and Furia making it out?
Yeah.
No, making it out of the group?
Of Group B.
No, I said Team Liquid and Exit. That's what I said.
I don't think you did.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure. Yeah, I said Furia was last.
Did you say Cyclops make it out?
No, I said it's a toss-up, but I said it's Exit, Team Liquid.
Listen, somebody's going to be able to rewind this podcast and call you out.
I'm pretty sure I said Furia gets last.
Well, you can change your prediction right now.
Yeah, are you changing it right now? You're on the spot. Is Exit making it out of Group B?
I'm pretty sure I said Exit and Team Liquid make it out.
I don't think you did.
I gotta go rewatch it myself. Hold on.
You did. He said, I think you said CAG. I don't think you said Exit, to be honest. But
I got this. Well, that's what I think. Team Liquid Exit.
Okay, so then Yardy, you had Liquid Furia. I had Liquid CAG, but kind of a coin flip, and then Geo has Liquid Xset.
With an asterisk next to Xset as a team that has, in my opinion, the highest ceiling and the lowest floor in this group for sure. Like they can be anywhere. They can be anywhere. But like I said, part of me wants them to get first because they're my friends and all. But like as a certified NA hater, I have to unfortunately give them third.
Yeah, this is the hardest group for me to predict. I really think that Xset. I think Liquid get first in this group no matter what because I just think Liquid are really good. I think Xset can definitely get out of this group in second. I think Cyclops are a very strong best of one team. So I think it's literally just going to come down to, honestly, maps. Like what teams these teams play on maps. Because Cyclops are very hard to deal with, especially, Xset don't have a lot of international experience. I think it literally just comes down to what maps they end up playing. I think it's going to be really close there. For groups,
Cyclops run Chalet.
They run shields on Chalet.
They love it.
Yeah. And then okay, so for group C, I had Heroic and W7 making it out with G2 in third and DZ in fourth. Did you guys have, I think you both had Heroic and W7M, I'm pretty sure.
Yeah.
Okay. And then for group D, I think this was honestly maybe the easiest for us to predict. I had Astralis, in order, I had BDS, then Astralis, then LFO, and Chiefs. And I think we all had the same order for that.
Yeah.
So now that we've kind of, in our opinions, given, our group picks, out of the teams that, maybe we weren't predicting to go far or were close, who would you guys say is your sleeper team that maybe we're not predicting to go far, but that you think could just show everybody wrong and like really make a deep run in the tournament?
For me, it's just Xset. Like, yeah, I don't have them getting out of the group, but like I said, their ceiling is so incredibly high, at least from what I saw the other day, that like they can be anywhere. I feel like they can, like I said, high ceiling, lowest floor. So they're for sure like my sleeper agent this tournament. I think Elevate, even though I do have them getting out to my sleeper agent, because nobody really. I feel like Elevate has to fill the shoes of Damn One because Damn One didn't make the tournament. I think like we said, Group D is pretty solid. Like we know what's going to happen there. So, like I said, my sleeper agents, long shots, are Xset and Elevate for this tournament.
What are you thinking, Gio?
Does it count? Like that is Heroic my underdog, even though I think they're gonna win it all? Does that count?
I mean, if you feel like they're being slept on, you could say that you think they're not being given enough credit. Because I would kind of agree with you there. I don't think people really talk about Heroic in some sort of way that they do like a Liquid or even a BDS. But they are coming into this tournament at 8-0-0-1. So I do think you could say they're being overlooked a little bit.
There you go then. My pick is Heroic. I think they have really strong fundamentals, and I think they played like a lot of. Actually, now that I'm trying to think, now that Empire's not there, is there any other structured teams? Any like EU, like really structured teams?
BDS. I'd say
yeah, BDS, and they beat BDS. I'm pretty sure, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
They beat everybody except.
Yeah.
Their only loss was to Navi.
So I would have to say, I mean, they beat BDS. They're beating teams like Rogue, which are like crazy, or known to be crazy teams. So I mean, for me, I think, like I said, the storyline's great for Uno. I think Heroic show up and win it all.
Yeah. So for me, I think just of the teams that I didn't pick to make it out of groups, I think G2. I think it comes from Group C. I think DZ or G2 can make a deep run in the tournament. Of the teams I did pick, I agree with you. I think Heroic is definitely being overlooked. Like, I think Heroic could legitimately win the tournament. I think they can definitely at least make the finals. I think they're a team that has a really good chance to go far in this tournament, and I don't feel like we really talk about them that much. And to be honest, now that I'm like listening to this, I feel like we're all in a way overlooking Astralis too, because Astralis is a team from NA, first in the region, pretty dominant stage, 8-1 again. I know those guys put in the time, and I know they're, I think they have a good play style for the current meta, and they're going to come into this with teams not really knowing who they are or how they play because they're newer. which obviously can maybe work against them a little bit too. But I think Astralis are kind of being slept on a little bit too, just from the fact that we don't think they're, we think they'll make it out of groups, but maybe not much beyond that. And that might not be giving them enough credit for the kind of stage they had. 8-1 is, the only teams that were going 8-1 last year in NA were SSG, and obviously they kind of bomb out at international tournaments. But I think Astralis maybe have a better play style for the international tournaments than SSG do. So I think that's going to be pretty interesting. So we kind of already got yours, Gio. What are the finals predictions? Obviously, we don't know what the playoffs bracket's going to look like. So this is kind of just us in a way just saying what are the two best teams. What do you guys think are the your finals predictions?
I think for me, my top two would definitely be Team Liquid, Heroic, with a chance of BDS, but again, I think I'm just thinking what's the safest bet here, and obviously I think everybody has Liquid as the favorites, and I usually think that pressure always causes them to crumble. But again, why should you pick anybody else besides Liquid? They have the two best players in the world, and they've been on fire lately. So I just think their consistency will help, push them to that next step. But then they could get grouped at the same time. They're weird. They're kind of cheesy like that. Like they could really ruin my bracket. It's like the first round of March Madness. So, but I think they're my safest bet for finals, and I think Heroic as well. And then BDS has a chance, obviously, and I think Astralis. So that's my top four, I would say. Astralis, BDS, Heroic, Liquid.
I feel like the whole tournament's kind of weird. Kind of gives do you guys remember the CS:GO tournament where it was I'm trying to remember what team it was, Immortals and Gambit in the finals, and it was a major.
Yeah,
because I remember tuning into that, and I was like, how did we get here? Where's Astralis? Where's all the other good teams? And it kind of gives me this tournament. Guys, kind of give you that vibes, like you said. The top was, I think Liquid's the only
of
top
the top
6 team.
Yeah, of the top 6 invite teams, Liquid is the only team that qualified for this tournament. Technically, after that, DZ and OXG would be the next highest placing invite teams.
Yeah, so I think it's a big toss-up. Honestly, I wouldn't be surprised we would get a Cyclops Elevate finals.
Yeah.
But I mean, like I said, it's a toss-up. I feel like if I had to make a top 4, it'd probably be Heroic, Liquid. It's kind of weird. Maybe BDS, and then I just throw in Exit.
Yeah, I don't know if I can. I don't think I'm going to pick a winner because I'm like that, but I think Heroic, Liquid finals, and then I think Elevate, Astralis top 4. I think my top 4 is Heroic, Liquid, Elevate, Astralis. BDS would definitely be, of the teams I'm not picking to make that, the most likely, I think, to get in there. Because it wouldn't I agree with you, Gio. I think this is a really fun tournament to watch from the aspect of there is so many new teams, so many new players, a lot of unfamiliarity with what's going on here, that anything could happen and you wouldn't necessarily be surprised, right? If Dire Wolves made the finals, I think we'd be surprised. If Chiefs made the finals, we'd be surprised. But all of these teams that we're kind of talking about making out of groups or being close to making out of groups, it would not shock me if W7M made the finals. It wouldn't shock me if XSET made the finals. It wouldn't shock me if Cyclops made the finals. And that's what makes this tournament, I think, a lot different than the usual suspects in a way, because, if you're at a tournament and TSM are there and SSG are there and, all these teams that you're used to seeing all the time.
Empire, all those guys.
Yeah, everybody's predicting them to go far. Where here, it's we're predicting a Heroic Liquid final, a Heroic Astralis, Astralis Elevate, that kind of thing. That, to me, just makes it very interesting to see. So now that we're kind of done with the predictions, do you guys have any hot takes for performances from the tournament? You think anybody's going to be exposed? Any teams are going to be exposed? Anybody's going to go crazy? I thought you raised your hand.
No, I'm not cooking anyone. I wanted to go back to the point. I just want to make sure, I want people to understand, it's not. Like I'm not saying like I'm a true believer money's money and a major's a money. I'm not trying to say like this major means like it's you're still gonna get money and you should still be like whoever wins this should still be
All the
considered
majors
like a
count the
top team.
same. It doesn't
Yeah,
matter. Yeah.
that's what I'm saying. The money's money. A major chip's a major chip. So I'm not trying to like discredit anyone. I'm just obviously stating like obviously like it's not like the most stacked major. So that's kind of what we're talking about. So before anyone starts cooking.
Yeah, this is a fraud major for sure. But I think with that being said, there are a lot of frauds that are going to be exposed. I honestly think LFO is the worst team in this tournament. I think they have one really good player, they have a decent rookie, and then just two mid players, and this is in terms of their own region. And then Rise. I think Rise is like kind of like I think Rise may be the worst player in this tournament coming in statistically. If you look at his stats, Seth, we were talking about this on my stream. Like a 9-25 entry is just unreal, and that's against Secretly. That's against Team Secret. That's against Knockoff Empire. So that's very concerning because he's going to be having to entry against Shaiko. Well, he already did entry against Shaiko in his region, but he's going to be entering against Astralis, who has unreal teamwork at times. Like it feels like they have 7 people on the field. Like good luck to him on the entry. I think he's going to be exposed as a fraud past his prime. I think this is kind of a huge event for G2, especially Virtue, because he's the last. It was rumored that he was going to get dropped. Like they were going to rebuild the team with like aces instead of him, and then it turns out that he stayed. I think and he was their lowest rated player, so I think this is also a huge turning point event for him. Group B, I think the sleeper agent for this group is gonna have to be like I think Gomez specifically because he struggled really bad against like the upper echelon of NA teams like TSM SSG at the beginning of the stage. And sure they didn't make the major, but those are the kind of like style of teams you're gonna be playing at the major. So I think for
Mhm.
him, this is going to be a big event. Like he's kind of like he's kind of like the Newers without the trash talk. I do think he's better than Newers, but like he has the same kind of thing to prove. We obviously know what Kino and Yogg can do, and even Spirits because Spirits did well at Invite. I think DS is the most underrated player in this event. I think he's kind of like a safe
Are you
like
sure? Because Rampy
that was the
thinks
most
DS is the most overrated
that was the
player.
most ridiculous thing I've ever heard. Like I couldn't even formulate a response to that. To like where did you play him, Rampy, in like scrims or ranked? Like I don't know where you formulate that opinion. That was ridiculous. But I think Gomez is going to be the fraud watch for Group B, even though he is a rookie. And Group A fraud watch is obviously for sure Newers, like as we've talked about. So those are my 4 fraud watches for the 4 groups, and I'm excited to see how they do.
I actually have a
Yeah.
funny story. Oh,
Okay,
go
go
ahead.
ahead. No, 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 no. Oh, no, no, no. We want to hear the funny.
Oh, keep going this
Whoa,
goddamn
no, you
story.
gotta say the story. You gotta say
I'll
the
do a
story.
story, then you can go here. I actually after what's it called? I'm trying to remember if it was like before we played FaZe or before we played Empire in the grand finals. We scrimmed Vitality or LFO at that time, and let me tell you, I'm pretty sure that is that the team that has like Mowgli or whatever his name is.
Yeah,
Yeah,
Mowgli.
Mowgli and
Let me,
Bibu.
bro. Let me tell you, they gave us a biblical beatdown. It was actually like ridiculous. I remember like we scrimmed them, and I was just thinking like after the scrim, like wow, those guys actually probably think we're gonna get smoked tomorrow. And I remember we showed up tomorrow, and I think that's when we play like FaZe and Empire. And I remember I was just kind of like thinking in my head like, damn, we just got fucking smoked. Like this was about to be rough, and I mean it didn't turn out that way, right? We smoked FaZe, and then gave Empire a good fight. I mean we ended up winning anyways, but. I just thought that was funny because I remember scrimming them. I'm pretty sure that's when they first made the team and they were crazy. So I was expecting big things for them in the league. I mean, they made the major, so I mean that's a plus, right? But that's my funny story for those guys.
Yeah, we scrimmed FaZe at Invite and we like smoked them. And then obviously we ended up playing them in like the losers for top 3 and they beat us pretty handily. It was like the second map was close. They smoked us on Oregon. And I always wondered like were those dudes just like scouting us or did they just see everything we did and they just like they're like smart enough to just change how everything they played based off of our scrim against them? Because like we rolled them in scrims.
I
Like
think
we played them on Villa, we like 10-2'd them. We scrimmed them on like Oregon, it was like 9-3. And those are the 2 maps we played them against, and they beat us. I always wondered like were those dudes scouting us or did they just like they just knew everything we were gonna do then? I was like, damn, we shouldn't have scrimmed these guys, I guess, but Yeah, the only time I've met Bibu, and I don't know if he doesn't speak that. I know he's like French, so I don't know if he just doesn't speak that good English. But he was wearing a hat, and his hat said Bibu, and I think it was like I was like walking by him or something at like a DreamHack, and I was like, "Hey, Bibu," and he just looks at me and he points to his hat and he goes, "Bibu."
Bibu. He
I
loves
was
that
like,
one.
all right. I was like, all right, like yeah, Bibu, like. He was like, I am Groot, and he's just like, Bibu. It's like, okay.
No, he speaks English 100%.
Yeah, maybe he's just Groot, though. But yeah, so for me, for Fraud Watch, honestly, I for Group A, I just want to say Team 1. Like, I'm a big Team 1 doubter, so I want to see what they've got, if they surprise me and do pretty well. Obviously, player-wise, after my rant, I would maybe say Newers, but I think Newers will do will do fine in this group. I don't think this is necessarily like a very hard group for Newers, so I think he'll do fine. For Group B, Fraud Watch, Fantasy, always. I think that guy is like, I gotta be careful here. He's Brazilian. I'm just not a big Furia believer. I'll say that. So I'm curious, he is getting to play this online, and I think that kind of works in his favor. So Furia to me is a little bit on Fraud Watch. For Group C, it's kind of G2 and DZ in a way. I almost want to put Troy on a little bit of Fraud Watch. Troy puts himself in that role. Troy Comedian, as we like to say, where he's playing like Jackal and he's playing Flores and he's playing, like operator roulette, basically putting himself in spots where he's, in stage 1 for NAL, he was he was like the main entry engagement player on DZ. And I'm not saying it doesn't work because obviously they qualified for the tournament, but I am a little curious to see, Troy Canadian on entry roles at these tournaments, because if I look at SQR here, and just in case Canadian hears this, I am not talking out of my ass, as Newers would like to say. These are statistics. They're written in stone. They're not made up. Okay, so to be clear, I know Newers doesn't understand this concept. These are numbers written down. These are your own performances. Okay, now Troy is measured in a different way because he is an IGL. Newers is not. Newers is an entry player, as he will remind us every single day on Twitter. So it's a little different. Troy contributes in other ways. But on Flores, 20% play rate, Troy had a 0.7 rating, 36% win rating. On Jackal, 20% play rate, Troy had a 0.6 rating, 36% win rating. Those are his two most played operators. So on kind of the solo roam entry ops, they're not winning the rounds and they're struggling a little bit. So I do think a little bit of Fraud Watch there to see how he does. And then G2 in general, I think it's just the team. There's a lot of pressure on that team. I like what you said about Virtue, where I do think this is potentially an important event for him to prove himself, because, they brought in the other three guys and Citizen's not going anywhere. So the odd man out, if they're trying to complete the super team, would potentially be Virtue. And as you said, he was their worst statistical performer. I think it's a big tournament for him to kind of solidify his spot or potentially be at risk of losing it. And then for Group D, Fraud Watch, I'll just say LFO. I agree. I think they qualified to this tournament without beating anybody really good in their region. And honestly, nobody else in this group really strikes me as like Fraud Watch. I'm very interested to see how Iconic, J9 Forest do at this tournament, because they're really good players in NAL, and this is their first international. So I think that's always interesting, especially a team that was 8-1 in their own region getting to play their first international tournament. It's interesting to see how they'll do, especially because they're going to have to play BDS, which is no easy task if they're in form. But yeah, I think that's pretty much it for me. Do you guys have anything you want to get out there that you weren't able to talk about, or that just popped up in your head?
I can't personally think of anything. Like I said, this is a Mickey Mouse major. Half the teams or 3 teams can't be there. So if you win, if an NA team wins, it doesn't count. If an EU team or LATAM team wins, like, great job. I'm proud of you. It
Let's get
100%
it.
counts. Let's get it. Yeah, let's go, Nesk.
Yardy, if Beast Coast would have qualified, would this still be a Mickey Mouse major?
Only if I won. Otherwise, it
Okay.
doesn't count.
A meme. If you won, it'd be the meme major, as Pengu would like to say.
Well, Pengu probably wouldn't count it as a legit major because I wasn't playing plumbers and janitors. So
Yeah, that is true. It only count if he doesn't like your play style. You're a little too aggro. It needs to be, a little more 1, 2, 3.
yeah.
What? Anything else, Gio? Are you good? Do you want to make any outlandish? Before the podcast, you were talking about how you wanted to side with Pengu and talk about why.
No.
Yeah, I don't think the latter.
I did not say any of this. It was all
Oh.
comedy. I think if anything for like the fraud watches, maybe I would have maybe Oxygen. I think for my fraud watches, it's mostly like teams that you like. It's teams that like you think are good, but it just depends if they show up and actually do good at the event, if that makes sense. So for me, it's OX3. Obviously, the whole like Newers and like team, like how the team does. Team Liquid. I feel like Team Liquid's kind of like in a row spot because I feel like at this point it's like
if you either win or you're mad.
Oh, that's what I'm saying. It's like you've been like near the top, and even now it's like the majors. Like I would say, like probably like this is one of like the most like I get not the easiest, but like you have a good chance of winning this one, right? I would say. So it's just like, what do you think? What do you start thinking after this? Like if you don't win this one, so I would have to say for them, that's kind of their fraud watch. For me, for C, I would have to say W7. I think W7's good, but I don't know. Those guys are kind of like weird. When you watch them play, it's kind of like they're weird. I don't know. So we'll see if we'll see the major exposes them, and Group D obviously BDS just for the fact that like everyone rates them so high. So same thing for them, right? Like if you can win this one, like what do you start thinking roster changes? Do you just go like, oh, we'll get the next one? Like when do you start thinking like when do you stop thinking we'll get the next one and you start like actually going like maybe we need a change or something, right? So that's my fraud watches for that.
Isn't one of the issues with like BDS, the team, just because they're a French speaking team, so the options are always like limited if they did want to make changes? Like in reality, what French player is good enough to be on BDS? And now I think honestly with that Mowgli guy, he seems like a pretty interesting entry player. I wonder if just like his existence puts pressure on some of them to.
Well, I feel that's what makes it weird. No, like imagine like even if you're the team, like let's say like you said, like there's no options to pick up. Like, what does that do for your mental? No, it's like, oh, we're just stuck with this team because that's the best we have. It's just kind of like, and I'm not saying BDS is a bad team at all. I'm just saying like at some point it starts getting in your head, right? Just like everyone thinks you're gonna do great. Even you think you're gonna do great, and you should do great because you're like a good team. You're a great team, and then all of a sudden it's just like you just come up short. So something obviously in the mental that they have to fix. But yeah,
I think those are all good points. I do think BDS are, because Liquid were in that position to me for a long time, and eventually they finally just they let Sexy Cake and I think it's Moringa go, right?
Yeah.
And everybody at the time was like, what the fuck? Like, why would they make these changes? They're getting top 4. And it's like, dude, if you're getting top 4, if you're Nesk and Palu and you're getting top 4 at every tournament for like 2 years, you're not satisfied with top 4. Like these teams, I'm sure BDS is in the same boat. If you don't win, it's a failure. Every team has different expectations. Like the Sonics, when we go to a tournament, if we get top 4, like I'm fucking happy with that. Like, getting top 6 at Invite, that was awesome for us. But these teams, and that's because we haven't been to all these things forever, right? Like last year was our first year fucking qualifying for that shit. These teams like Liquid have been going to these for 4 years. Paulu's the best player the game has ever had. He's never won anything. Like, you don't think that guy is never going to be okay getting like second place? Like, they are going to win. And when you have a player like that, you have to do whatever you can to satisfy whatever he's thinking, right? If Paulu says this isn't working, I need to change, we need to win, they are going to keep doing that until that happens. And on BDS, if Shaiko or Brid say that, like they finally say, okay, I just, we got to look elsewhere. We need a different option. There's some French options out there now that we can look at. They're going to listen to that, right? They don't want to they don't want to piss off the best players. It's just how it is. Some people's opinion means more than others.
No, I agree.
Yeah, go ahead, sir.
No, I was like, to your point, it's 100% like you said. It's like, sure, like the fans or everyone can say whatever they want, analysts can say, we can say whatever we want, but it's like until the players themselves start thinking it right, that's when the whole like roster changes in general start like thinking. That's why the whole thing of like Liquid, like I said, they don't make it far. Let's say if Liquid gets grouped, I think that's really bad for them. But I mean, it just depends. If they get grouped, I would say it's really bad for them. But then again, like you got to see, like, do they look at it as in like, oh, we have like 2 new players? But at what point do you stop saying we have 2 new players, right? And we're like learning. Like I said, this is like probably like they're adapting, they're playing great. So we just have to see what it does for them.
Yardy, this is just kind of a question for you because you're the only one of us going as a spectator because you, of course, did not qualify. If you're there and like in the finals or even the semifinals, there's online teams playing, how pissed would you be mad, or would it feel weird if there's an online team in the final or playing in the semifinal and you're like watching and there's only one team up there and it's online, it's not even on LAN?
As long as it's not an NA team, I wouldn't really care. But I have to say that would be very awkward to see like one team screaming. Like I can't even think of like it's kind of like going to a concert, I guess, right? Like you're watching one group up there just kind of like get hyped and scream. You're not watching a competition. Like you're not watching 2 people face off.
You're going to a Kendrick Lamar concert, and he's not there. It's like a video of him performing at like his house.
Yeah, it's going to be really weird, especially if there's a double online quarterfinal game. Like that's literally like a watch party, an in-person watch party. Like that is gonna. I may not even go to that. That sounds fucking awful.
Yeah, that. I hope we avoid those situations because I do think, especially because this is like, in a way, the big comeback. Like we're having crowds now. That would be like. That would just look bad, I think, to have a fucking like online team in the final or something with a crowd. Like, it just wouldn't be a good look in my opinion. So sorry, online teams. I'm rooting for all of you to get grouped, basically. I just want all of the teams there. I just think it's better. Have LAN games too. Online is Mickey. But yeah, I mean, I think that's it. We pretty much covered everything. We've talked about how Geo sides with Pengu. We talked about how our general group predictions.
Imagine if Pengu's cooking those guys. Imagine what he's saying about us. He's probably cooking it up. I can't wait for the tweet one day. TSM overrated.
Yep. that didn't even count. Geometrics all-time winningest Siege player, not in my book. Mickey Mouse wins.
100%.
All right, thank you guys for joining me. That's gonna do it for If Supr Says It, episode 5. If you're watching this live or you just caught the end of it, it'll be uploaded to YouTube shortly. It'll be on Spotify. It'll be on iTunes. So thank you for watching. Thank you guys for hanging out. And I personally will be live co-streaming every single day of the major starting, I think it starts on Tuesday or Monday, one of the days next week. So see you guys then. Thank you guys for hanging out.
Oh, wait up. Shout to Ash. Shout to Ash and let's go heroic. Woo!
Oh,
let's go.
Let's go. Shout out to Newers. Let's go OXG. Woo. New crew.
What about Dark Zero? Lights out.
Shout out to Troy Comedian and Dark Zero. Let's go.
And Pamba Who, Troy Comedian.
To the stars, Astralis.
Woo!
Roman.
That was great.
Okay. Yeah, great ending. All right. Thanks for hanging out. See you guys later.